Okay. Good morning, everyone. It is December 17th, 2025. It is getting cold out, so I know everybody should be plugging in their buses. We have people coming in and starting buses, making sure the buses are warm for the drivers. Everybody should be treating their fuel, which is good. Our last meeting was held on November 12th, 2025. And it was Chuck O'Neill from New York Bus Sales presented on the Bluebird electric bus. Any changes and updates since the last year? We try to do it every year. In fact, our next presentation is going to be on the International electric bus. Any changes and updates since last year? So on the Bluebird, they have teamed with Polera. Polera works with districts.
Yeah, it's goes from South County Bus Scratch area.
Good. How you doing?
I just want to know, do you know when I ordered a bumper for one of our buses, a kit, and they said they're going to deliver it? It came from Connecticut today, yesterday.
Something different.
I was wondering.
All right, so Polera works with districts on their fleet electrification plans. Bluebird also has a 28-passenger bus that is available EV. So that's a smaller bus. It's got a 194 kilowatt battery pack. It's a Cummins battery pack. And with that pack, they're getting about 200 miles per charge, which is pretty decent. A new 175,000 square foot facility was made, and that's where they're going to be making their electric buses. They offer level 2 and 3 fast chargers, just like the other manufacturers. The cabin can be preheated depending on the temperature. So that's kind of a cool setup. I know that with other manufacturers, when you order the bus, you have to tell them if that's an option that you want, because it's an added on feature where at a certain time, the bus will start to heat the interior. And they have to know that before you order the bus. That's with other manufacturers. Now, they say it's an option for them. Just want to clarify that, I would think, before you order it, just to make sure. EcoTune is their partner company, and they're
Awesome.
working on.
Thank you very much.
They're working on the range of the batteries.
All right, thanks.
They are getting a 150-mile range out of a Microbird with a 140 kilowatt battery. So that's the smaller battery. They told us that the EV production will most likely be moved to the Plattsburgh facility. I think right now it's being done in Canada, and they're going to move it to the Plattsburgh. And an 8-year warranty is offered on all batteries that they sell. So, so that being said, I want to make a clarification on the last meeting. We spoke about DOT, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see this? This is the out of service decal. If you have this decal, you can drive the bus to have it repaired. But there's another decal. If I can pull it up here. Right, let me get out of this. It's not letting me go back. There's a road service where you cannot use the bus at all. Now it won't let me out of here. Okay. There's another one that I wanted to show you. So let me try this again. Share the screen, email. Okay. share this. Okay, this is the other one. If you have this, and they'll put them both on. If you have them both, you have an A failure and you have a highway prohibited. This means that you have to tow the bus to have it repaired or fix it in-house, but it cannot be operated on public roads. So I know we had one of these once. We had to have it towed to the facility that was going to fix it. And then after it was fixed, we had to have it towed back to our facility and have it re-inspected. And the DOT inspector would scrape the sticker and you're back in business. But with the first one, you can take it with no students on board to have it fixed. And that's the difference. So we just wanted to clarify and make sure that everybody was informed on this. So today's presenter is Kevin Capobianco with RH Crown, and he's going to be presenting on coolants and oil sampling. So go ahead, Kevin.
Well, thank you all for having me. Thank you, Daniel, for inviting me. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. I'll try not to make coolant and lubricant analysis too boring. What I have done is put something together for you. So I'm going to share my screen now. Hopefully do this with a little bit of ease. Picture in picture them because you're sharing your screen.
Hello.
We did this earlier. It worked very well. Okay.
I get you. Thanks.
See if this will. Can everybody see that?
Yes, I can see it.
I hope I've done this right, and it'll go easy. So once again, Kevin Capobianco with RH Crown Company and Emerson Oil. We'll tell you this now. You're kind of the first ones to hear it. The beginning of the year will be known as Emerson Oil. We've merged with our partners out in Rochester to cover pretty much all of New York State now. So that's an interesting transition that'll happen, and we're pretty excited about it. So you guys are kind of the first to kind of hear that we're going to make that official on the 1st. So thank you, and we appreciate the continued support. Not much has changed in the coolant industry. We're coming off of electric buses and Daniel's comments about some of what's out there. The coolants for electric buses are very specific, and the private sector market hasn't moved yet too much because anything you do with that is going to be under warranty. So it's kind of that time lap of let's give it some time and see how things shake out and see where the electric bus fleet all goes, and then from there we can pivot. Prestone, Old World, all those guys have formulas. There's a lot of OEM product being put out there for the OEMs, and when it transitions over to our side of the fence, we'll be ready to move based on what they've already told us. So, been in the industry myself. Over 30 years, been with Crown for 23 and a half years. I am STLE, Science Tribologist, Lubrication Engineer certified as a certified lubrication specialist. So that's helpful when we get into the oil analysis, and coolant goes hand in hand with it, whether we like to admit it or not. So a little bit of data to share with you here. Let's see how this goes. Heavy duty coolant market size. I pivoted this to heavy duty because that's your primary area of operation. The school bus is a heavy duty piece of equipment used to transport your students, one of the most precious cargoes we have. So that being said, this is geared that way, but I want to talk to you all about a way to streamline and help you and your district save money and a little bit of peace of mind. So about 30 to 40 million gallons a year. 6 brands make up about 89% of those gallons. You can see the retail market holds a pretty large chunk of that, almost 50%. The heavy duty market, if you were to look at that pie, is about 21%, and then you've got some mix-ups between OEMs and traditional applications that are out there. What you have to know is this is the basic function of coolant. What do we do? We want to transfer heat, the energy out of the system to keep it cool through a radiator, and then back in to maintain optimal temperatures. You guys all know that. I don't think I'm telling you anything that you don't know, but sometimes it's good to have a little refresher just to see the generics of the flow, what it's there for, and what we need it to do. What's changed in the industry for the kind of the, forgive me here, maybe the old timers is, what we've done now is we've gone from kind of all steel to steel and aluminum and copper, and all kinds of different components in the cooling system that interact with coolant that create pH imbalances. So when you have pH imbalances, we all know that can create corrosion. It can create other problems with inhibitors that are in coolant and create blockages from those type of things. Probably the most common one that most anybody will remember is GM and Dexcool. Everybody wanted to blame the coolant for the issue of what they had going on back in the early 2000s, where every GM vehicle seemed like would plug up and the radiators and everything else would turn brown and sludgy. It was actually tied to a very specific plant, and the water was off, did not have the proper pH, and created a reaction that just slowly turned these vehicles into sludge, and they needed flushing and everything else. So we go from that time frame, today's time frame, and we're moving away from a lot of different things, and we'll talk about that here, what's out there, because we've gone from green to yellow to orange for Dexcool to red coolants. And if you look even further, you can get into your foreign PCMO, passenger car market, and you will see that you tend to have different colors. Nissan, I think, is blue. Toyota might have a pinkish color. And what I like to convey to people a lot of times is don't get so wrapped up in the colors, because it's really the technology that's in it. Is it organic acid technology, nitrate free? Is it low silicate? Those are all the things that are out in the market that you need to kind of get familiar with. What I'm going to talk to you about in the antifreeze market is heavy duty nitrate free. The reason I want to talk about heavy duty nitrate free, everybody's got it. Peak, Old World, Prestone, they all have it. The heavy duty nitrate free antifreeze is red in color, and Prestone, along with others, have endorsed it and have the approvals to cover a mixed fleet. You guys all have a mixed fleet. This is the best picture I could find across the World Wide Web of school buses and some mixed vehicles. A couple different makes and models in there, but you have a mixed fleet. And what does that mean for you? It means at any given time, your need or call for antifreeze could vary based upon the vehicle that you're working on. So it could be a Chevy pickup truck, maybe it's a Chrysler minivan because you're doing some short runs or some light transportations. Could be even a piece of lawn equipment that you're using out in the field for maintaining your fields or snow blowing or whatever it is that's going on. So how do you do that, and how do you make that happen for you? Well, you get into nitrate-free organic acid technologies. The nitrate-free is really the driver here. So taking those nitrates out of the coolant helps the coolant stay balanced in multiple metal applications. That's probably the easiest way to say it. So if you have aluminum and copper and steel and copper and all these different elements in there, if you can get those nitrates out of the coolant and use different technology, you can continue to provide superior corrosion protection, have universal compatibility. Prestone happens to be over 1 million miles on their product, taking all the extra additives out of there to balance things out, still get temperature protection. and all kinds of really what we're focused on is aluminum component protection because there's so much aluminum now in motors. And that's kind of the unique, good way to kind of summarize it a little bit. We like it in red. It's our most popular item. They make it in the yellow also. The reason we do red is because most people are familiar with the CAT EC1 spec, and that was red for heavy duty for the longest time. And then Detroit wanted the yellow. So just a little side piece there for you. You have all these colors potentially. You may have yellow, you may have some red. You've got some old stuff out there. You may have some purple. That's pre-charged antifreeze SCAs. And green was your low silicate, what the industry started on many, many moons ago. To pull this together for you, and since this will be available to you, and I'll be happy to share it with the group, we've kind of streamlined a nice little, hey, what's in the market, antifreeze, and how does it fit, and where does it go, and what should we use, along with some of the others out there so that you can look at it. Heavy duty coolants by color chart: purple pre-charges, yellow is a Navistar, that's a nitrate free, and you can see going out across the chart how they all apply to what's available there. The item that's not listed in here because I'm featuring it is the Prestone Command with Core Guard, which falls under the same as you see there with the Purist 50/50 antifreeze yellow. I'm not allowed to do certain things with branded products out there, so I have to kind of play in between the lines here. You'll see here the coolant functions on all the vehicles the same way. So, if somebody says, well, I've got to have this coolant for this vehicle for this reason, coolant has not changed. It's still primary focus and function is to take heat, remove it, cool it, bring it back in for optimal temperatures so that you can have efficiencies. And that's across all platforms, class 1 through class 8. Why is that important? Because I'm telling you that we can streamline your antifreeze in the industry with new technologies that are available. And as I said, everybody's got them. It doesn't have to be just us. Of course, we would always like the business, but you all have suppliers you like to deal with. You need to start asking about nitrate-free products and then look at what works for you. And that will help you. This is just a general chart to kind of help you see what's out there and available for you. There's some coolant maintenance guidelines. I think this is pretty important. SLC, standard life coolant, ELC, extended life coolant. We're talking ELC. How do you maintain your coolant? Regular testing, test your concentration levels, test your pH level. Color is important. Color can tell you a lot. It's not going to tell you what's wrong with the coolant, but when you see things off, that's your first indication that something isn't right. Color will change. SCA levels, I don't think anybody, if you are and you have questions about SCA pre-charged antifreeze, I don't know of anybody that's currently using any SCA pre-charges, and you don't need to with nitrate-free products. Drain, flush, and refill the entire system periodically to help remove rust and scale. Cleanliness, this is one people overlook all the time. They'll be doing something and they'll go to put something, something, you got a new water pump or something like that. I've always told people, I said, there's no harm in foul before you put that water pump in there to use a little bit of new coolant and just wet the surface of it so that it's a clean product that it's got in there, because that's what coolant is designed for. People sometimes use other products to clean, and it's really not the ideal thing to do, especially on a new piece of, a new part. So it's kind of like the old adage, if you're rebuilding a motor, you take a little bit of new oil and you wet it around the seals or the new oil filter, take oil, you wet it on there, close it up on there. Those are things to do to help yourself. You can use coolant in the same way. It's very beneficial. When you talk about testing, there are plenty of ways to test your coolant quickly. You can get pH strips. You can send out coolant for testing. Those are all things that are available through most of your vendors. I know it's a service that we offer. Just a general, here you go, tell you a little bit about it. In organics, SCAs, hybrids, HOTS is what they're called, organic notes with nitrate, and then without nitrate, oats. So we call them nitrate free. Once again, just a little smaller chart showing what's available out to you, okay, across all your classes. This is where I want to kind of focus your attention, because if you're working with your school and you're working with your business official and you're doing bids, this is an old sheet that was presented, I'm going to say probably in 2015, with approvals that were out in the market not that long ago, okay? And this is the current sheet from Prestone with OEM meet or exceed performance requirements and approvals and standards. The interesting thing here is if you look at Cummins spec 14603, whoops, went the wrong way, they have changed 3 times over. They've added 3 other different specs to cover different platforms that they have, and this fluid, this coolant meets it all, and highlights their bulletin, which I did not put in here. You're more than welcome to look it up, where they talk about some of their coolant requirements and so on and so forth. And you can see on this chart, the CAT EC1 spec was the original driver for heavy duty red antifreeze on there, still meets it. Navistar, you guys may or may not be building some of your buses with Navistar. Meet it, we're there. International, John Deere, Ford, GM, those GM specs, that's cool. You can look it up. Volvo, Mack, Freightliner, PACCAR. These are all the things that have happened over the times, including the industry standards. So ASTMs are all your industry standards that are out there, military and government standards are there. But you can see how much has changed in just a short period of time. I don't think going back, 10 years is that big of a deal. But look what we're trying to do. 300-hour stress test and some general information here. So that being said, when you look at meeting these requirements, the easiest way to do it, unless you've got distilled water in your facility, is to buy 50/50, because it's only as good as the tap water that you mix it with. And most of us don't test our tap water, and most of our tap water through a wastewater treatment facility that's provided to everybody in their communities has some type of fluorides and other things in it that are not good for antifreeze, and they're not good for your heavy duty or PCMO applications. So when you can buy 50/50, put it on your bid, put it on your spec, put it out there. And when you're doing that, please take the time and look at what your main fleet is. And if you're a Cummins guy and that's what you want to do, look at the Cummins specs and put those specs in there. So it's not often good enough to just say, I want a heavy duty class 8 antifreeze, because you can then introduce yourself to recycled products that often may meet certain parts of the spec, but aren't required to meet all of them. And that can really cause you some long-term issues. If you're in Detroit, use the Detroit spec and put it in there. That'll help every school get a competitive edge to get the best product for what they need. And then spec it for 50/50. Unless you tested your water and know it's what you need it to be, then you could just be creating your own problem. We can help with that, I guess, is where we can take that to. This product can be used in everything. So really, really important to stress that part, that you can use it in anything you want. You can do anything that you want with it, and you will be good to go. Let me I just want to check that. Let's see. Old formers are still around. Passenger car coolants are not made for heavy duty. They're not designed the same way, but the heavy duty coolant can be used in all light duty applications. Prestone's stance is this easiest way to say this, if you had a 10-gallon reservoir and your mechanic or your bus driver or somebody accidentally grabbed a gallon of light duty coolant, and the Prestone Core Guard 13100 antifreeze, if you put a gallon in there as an emergency top off, they stand behind it that it will still maintain the characteristics of all the heavy duty applications of that product, as long as it's not greater than 25% of the mixing ratio. So basically, you're talking about if you had 10 gallons, you could almost go, you go a couple of, 2.5 gallons in there and you'd be okay. And that's a good thing, because we all know people make mistakes, and that's okay. We appreciate those mistakes. They create opportunities for others. And, when they do that, we regroup, we move forward, and we move on. What is a great advantage to that, and why do we tout that information? Because it used to be, if you wanted to change antifreeze, they wanted you to do a complete flush and fill. You had to make sure you got so much out. And the industry recognizes that even when you flush your application, if it holds 10 gallons, you're probably actually going to, if you flush it, you're probably going to get about 9 gallons out. So you're going to always have a little residual. This being said, if you do a repair or something like that, you could start your transition by mixing this in as you go if you didn't have to do a full flush, because it's compatible with other antifreezes that are out there. Obviously, you should check your antifreeze to make sure that the pHs and those things in it aren't so far out of whack that you're just adding good onto something that truly needs to be flushed. But it gives you that flexibility so that you can move through and do some different things with it, and get you down to one product. So that being said, I think if you have questions on antifreeze, throw them at me. I'll try to answer them right now. You can always email me before I take you into lube analysis reports. Any questions?
Hey, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the EV coolants earlier.
Yep.
Is that any different than the regular coolants that you're selling?
Yes, the EV coolants that will come available eventually to the market, because of the electrolysis and currents, the additive packs are significantly different, because they have to be cautious with conductivity. Unfortunately, we all know that if you have an electric vehicle fire, the fire department has to handle it totally different. A lot of times they cannot put, I don't think of any that can put any water on it, unfortunately, because of the potential hazards that come from that. A lot of these things, there's a lot in that market that is yet to be defined, and the coolants, the big difference with it is going to be the additives that are in there, because there's conductivity issues that they have to operate within. So it's going to be more like a heat transfer fluid. So if you're familiar with HTFs, the heat transfer fluids that are on the market used for cooling or heating large towers and things like that, is where this is going. And I think my next class on that is going to be in March. So maybe after they kind of bring us up to speed on where that's going, we can have a greater conversation. Right now, the OEMs, Prestone, Old World, Peak, and those guys are doing the factory fills, and a lot of that is proprietary. So we don't get a lot of good information on it just yet. Or at least I'm not. Maybe the bus guys are getting more because they have to deal with it for repairs in-house, but I'm not getting that data yet.
All right. Brian Ledger.
Yes, hi. So I think we actually, do you guys sell Service Pro?
Yep.
Okay, so we actually use that through our local distributor. I thought the name Crown was common, or that I've saw it before, and I placed it. So my question is, how's the best thing place or how to get rid of antifreeze?
Well, there are a few people that we will put in contact. There's a large recycler out in the west part of the country that will pick up antifreeze. There used to be some. There is not a good local source to do it. I know ourselves, we are not. You have to carry different licenses to pick up used motor oil and antifreezes. because I'm sharing my screen, I can't see names, but if you want to email me, I'll put that up at the end again. I can get you the point of contact so you can reach out, and we'll get you, somebody that you can talk to about picking up your used antifreeze.
Okay, yeah, thank you. We don't do too much with it, but it'd definitely be nice to have it.
Yeah, typically a drum. They like to pick up a drum at a time.
Okay. Yeah, so that we were getting a drum from Service Pro, but I actually changed to because I was mixing it with the tap water, and then I actually got distilled water, but I was like, this is just a pain. So I went to the red Prestone and the GM Dex Cool. But that yellow you were talking about covers everything, you said, correct?
So does the red. The red is the newest formula. They originally came out with it in yellow, but now they've moved to the basic. I call it Prestone Core Guard 13100. That's the drum part number. It's our most popular item. It has a GM Dex Cool approval with it. Also, you'll see a GM's number on there. You can go back and review the slide, you'll see it's there. You can use that for everything, so you wouldn't need to have two products. But yeah, Prestone Command Core Guard.
And that's for Chrysler vans.
Yep.
Awesome.
I think the Chrysler number, I used to know them off the top of my head, but I think Chrysler does theirs under Chrysler. Maybe the spec is just the 3306. They do theirs. They don't have an individual direct spec. You know what I mean? Like GM has Dex Cools.
Yes.
So GM has their own here. I think Chrysler, if my memory is correct, is the 3306, which is one of the major antifreeze specs. So
yeah, that'd be nice to just carry one.
Yep.
Instead of 4 or 5. So
guys, I don't push it for selfishly, I guess I should say I push it for two reasons. One, I like to simplify things, and two, it saves me a ton of space in the warehouse. Having one product that I have confidence in, putting it out to people and saying, here it is. And any of the local sales, any of my area managers, depending on where you're at, the North Country, as we call it, north of I-90 is Dan. Albany and south is Phil Ferrone, and then west is Charles Martin. So between Dan Chapin, Charles, and Phil Ferrone, you can usually get a good antifreeze question answered. And my number is always available to you. You can always call here, call me direct, and I will look it up. I will get you spec information and approvals. I have spent a fair amount of time with Prestone and their reps on different projects, from testing recycled antifreeze to used antifreeze and everything else. And I'm very, very confident with this current makeup of product and what they're trying to achieve and all the approvals they've gone out to get so that you can do that. So yes, you can do it. Ford, I don't care what you put it in.
Awesome. Well, that was all I had. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions before I go to oil analysis?
Hey, Kevin, we used to use those additive filters, and I know you spoke about those.
Yep.
So those are a thing of the past, correct?
Yeah, and there's only a few, and I'm not too familiar with who's using SCA precharges coolants. That's kind of a lot of the purple spec that you see on your screen there. Some of the older stuff that's in there, that has gone away with the nitrate-free products. So what a lot of people have done in those applications is they've turned around and said, hey, I'm just going to remove my filter. I don't need to charge it. And they flushed out and they put in the Prestone Core Guard.
Okay.
Saving expense, time, labor, the whole 9 yards.
Nice.
Personally, I can tell you, I ran it. I run the Prestone Core Guard in my 2500 truck. Before I traded in, had 150,000 miles on it. I never did a thing with the coolant system. So could be luck, could be the antifreeze. I like to think it's the antifreeze, but I'm also the guy selling it. So lubricant analysis. I like to think of it in 4 parts. This here is a cutout of the main parts, and I'm just going to walk you through it kind of briefly. Polaris Labs is one of the most popular labs in the country. They do a lot of testing for the majors, and they do a lot for private label groups and others out there. Average test sample bottle, if you wanted to just sample something, about $22 plus your postage to get it out the door. If somebody tells you it's free, it's not free. It's somewhere in the price buried. There's always ways to do things. So part one information is all your key stuff. It's what you guys put into it. In this case, you're looking at a customer down in the Albany area. I chose this one for a couple different reasons, just to highlight some general information for you. They're going to flag this because they see it was sampled on November 6th and they didn't receive it till December 3rd, and they completed it on the 5th rather. So typically a sample gets to them usually within 72 hours. I have a report that comes back to my desk. There's some other stuff that tends to show up missing from time to time. You could put the filter type in there, whatever you're using, whether it's a Napa, Purolator, Fleet Pride, and the micron rating. It's helpful information. It's not must-have information. Everything else, you see here, you got your who it is, who point of contact is, phone number to reach them, the component ID, a secondary ID if they have multiple identification ways to identify their truck, component type, manufacturer, the model, sump capacity. This is the tracking number, the lab that did the work, obviously the dates when it came in here, and then the product that they're using. That's your hey, let me get your rolling type of information. Make sure that's filled out correctly. My guys are well trained in how to help get this data in and correct so that you get the most information back. From there, comments from the lab. This is where I get probably most of the information that people call me on, as they say, is this something I need to worry about? So on this report here, okay, this is what we're referencing, and we'll go through it. It's just a quick comment from the lab, letting you know, in this case, no immediate action. They may say, hey, sample at a shorter interval, fill in missing data, wear metal, additive comments. This particular sample is good to go for the most part. We'll talk about some of the things that are different here in just a second. But that piece of information is always available to you every time, anytime you look up that unit. Very, very important. Those guys are paid a lot of money and are, experts in their field to look at what's going on to tell you, hey, this is an area to be concerned or not be concerned. So, and I guess one thing that you should know is when you put in this component information, their comments are flagged off of that based on every piece of data they have that matches up with that component. So in this case, that component is a Mac and it's a model MRU 613. So any Mac 613 that they have, they're taking that data, comparing your information off of it, and then coming up with an analysis based upon that and the data that you've already provided. So part 3 is what's in the oil sample. This blue line here is exactly what well, you wouldn't know this, but I'll tell you what it is, BL baseline. So this customer sent in a baseline reference sample at some point to say, hey, this was out of my tank. This is, what things should kind of look like on any given day. And then these are the subsequent samples afterwards showing what's going on. Wear metals, contamination, multi-source metals, and additive metals. Additives are in the engine oil and makeup. As you use your engine oil, these things will change. So your additive metals will change, and your contaminants based upon what's going on will increase or be stable depending on multiple factors, mostly time, how long is the engine oil in there. So then you have your wear metals. This is everything in the unit, so to speak. Your iron, nickel, copper, lead, tin, anything that's in anywhere that oil could potentially come into contact with a metal, that's going to let you know. Is it your rods? Is it your bearings? Is it, your valve? What is it? Where could it be? You can see this unit has got 6 samples on record. You can see he's had some ticks here and there, nothing too crazy. And I'll tell you why I don't think it's too crazy. We're going to go back and forth just a little bit here. You could see that his sampling interval here is a little sporadic. He went from unit time, did some work, and had some changes. I talked to him about this unit. And it's a unit that's not used too often, so it's got a lot of sit time and a lot of, sometimes it's doing stuff, sometimes it's not. They missed it. They missed some drain intervals. You didn't do a service, so on and so forth. So the data that's here, because of what he's done, created some of these anomalies, some of these different things. Nothing flagged here that was of concern. Anything above a 3 is in a yellow. Okay. Anything in green is considered normal, but hey, what's going on? Let's ask a question. Let's find out what happened. These 3 here's, where the magnesium and the atomos change. So chances are, as talking to the customer, he said, yeah, my guy's down there, put in some different engine oil. I said, okay, as long as you know what's going on, and we have a conversation. The reason I don't get concerned is look at his wear metals. His wear metals are perfect, as close to perfect as they can be. They're not jumping up. He had one jump up. It came back. He did a resample. Good. And they're trended back down. This was his long interval where he didn't, he kind of missed some samples, so his wear metals went up. But you can see that they're not trending out of control. They're in good shape. This is the fourth part of it, okay? And this is the timeline, and this tells me the other things that are going on. So I looked at the wear metals, I looked at the additives, and the most important thing to me is what's my viscosity doing? Viscosity is your ability to lubricate and keep the engine, smooth. You keep that fluid film so that everything spins and rotates on some barrier of lubrication. Well, this is a 1540. He's running a 12.7 on something that's got 278 hours of time in it and about 7 months. So from that standpoint, I know in everything that I do that he's good to go. You can see the fuel here, 2.1, 1.6, 1.8, all acceptable limits for what he's doing. And mostly probably because this unit is not used that much. It's probably started, run, and then put down, and everything is good to go. This type of data is how you set your trends, and then you take your trends information and you go, hey, looks like, things are trending the right way. Why is that important? Well, I'll show you why that's important. How much data is too much data? This unit, we've been sampling since 2017. We took this account over from Mobile. And this unit had 93,000 miles on it when we took it over. You could see the viscosity down the right. There's 45 samples here. Okay. In the 45 samples, we went from 93,000 miles on your left here to 463,000 miles. Viscosity stayed all in grade. Then we went to 757 miles. And that was just as of the first of this year, December 1st, this month rather. And you can see that with all that data, and that happens to be on Purus heavy duty engine oil, 15W40, he is spot on. He's exactly where he needs to be. His trends are good. His viscosity is good. His fuel is good. Everything that I need to know is good. If you're sampling your fleet and fuel spikes, and let's say it gets up to, you would flag it about 3.6, I might call you up and say, hey, do you have a problem with a bus? We have one up in Hudson Falls, great school district, and every time I get that sample, he goes, yeah, we run that bus 4 times a year. We start it and make sure it runs more than anything. It's a backup bus. And the fuel every time I'm going to say is somewhere in the 4 point something range. And every time I call them up or I let the salesperson know and it's like, Dan, hey, you need to go check with Hudson Valley School, make sure they're still that's just a checkup on the bus. and they do. This type of data, if all of a sudden on this sample on December 1st, the last one we had, and the fuel was 3.8, I would be calling up the salesperson and say, hey, talk to your customer. He may have an injector going. And I can't tell you how many injectors we have caught for customers and said, hey, take a look at it. Because unfortunately or fortunately, people tend to just get in, drive, and go. This is a good testimony. I cheated when I put this one in here. I looked for one. I mean, 1,000,000 miles on one product is hard to find. 1,000,000 miles on heavy haul is hard to find. We started this unit doing 18,000 mile drain intervals. We went to 20,000 mile drain intervals, and then we went to 25,000 mile drain intervals. Here's one in here. They missed an oil sample, or missed a oil change. They did 37,000 miles on that. Good product. Just saying, that's a little plug for us. What does that mean for you? It gets you more. If you can look at your oil analysis and you can see the data and you can look at the trends, you can determine, are you doing the right drain intervals? Are you using the right product? You can extend equipment life, optimize maintenance, improve reliability, and make good informed decisions. You're going to look at contaminants, wear metals, oil degradation, and operating conditions. You're going to find out if you have a driver that potentially, is heavy-footed, or, maybe there's other things that are happening that you don't know. EGR coolers, all these other different things that can happen from time to time. So it's important to know that we're not just trying to get a sample just to sample. We're getting a sample to help you make an informed decision about your fleet. So that's a good way to look forward to it. This is my general information here. A good partner helps you. You could always call me. As I said, I'm STLE certified as a certified lubrication specialist. You could always call the lab with questions. They are the experts. They can help you. They can help you, discuss potential opportunities. And if you don't like talking to me, you can talk to them. Every sample under Purus heavy duty engine oil gets looked at. I look at every sample that comes in. I roughly look at about 3,000 samples a year. Any sample with a 3 or 4, we send it to the area manager, make sure they call the end user directly and go over the data, make sure it's good, and come up with a corrective action plan. I don't know a lot of suppliers that do that. I think that's something that doesn't happen. It's something we're proud to provide and something that we can do. I'll open up to questions, but before I say that, I do want to tell you all a Merry Christmas. And if there's something that we can do to help you, please let us know, and we will. And I think that being said, questions.
Well, I can tell you that we did oil sampling a lot, and what we would find a lot of times, just like Kevin just said, you get the high fuel in the oil, and we would end up having to replace injectors because we had leaking injectors, and it was kind of a common thing.
Yeah, injectors are your biggest failure in the industry since we've changed to secondary high pressure pumps, and we're asking injectors to atomize spray at such a high rate now, and using oil as a tool to help those injectors do that job. We see injector failures at a very high rate. That's not going to change. That's why you have 2 different heavy duty engine oil categories in the CK and the FA, and why you'll see a change in category with the next proposed category change coming up in the heavy duty market. So oil analysis is something that's not done enough, and I think people should do more of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very valuable. You're finding the different metals in the oil. What's wearing. We were big on it.
It's a great tool. So,
all right. Does anybody have any other questions for Kevin?
I put them all to sleep. Sorry, guys.
All right. Well, not seeing any questions here. I want to thank you, Kevin, for your presentation.
Thank you.
And like I said, I'll definitely be in touch with you as we get closer to the summer seminar, and hopefully we can have you involved in that. I know moving forward, I think it's, oil sampling. And Kevin, you mentioned coolant sampling. When you sample coolants, you're looking for metals in there, or are you looking for the breakdown of the coolant itself?
You'll look at the pH level primarily. Then you'll look for additives that will be in the coolant. One of the big things that we tend to try to find in coolant is your alkalinity level, and there's your reserve alkalinity level is really tells you where the life of the coolant is at. As that degrades down, your coolant will degrade faster. So those are some of the things that we tend to look at. You will see metals in coolant. If you get a water pump or impeller that's starting to go bad, that will show up. And sometimes, you may have a heating or cooling issue that you're not aware of, and it could be because you have some of these metals, impellers, and things like that starting to go bad. What people don't realize about coolant is coolant now in today's market has a lubricant in it, for lack of better terms, that helps coat all the metal in the cooling system to help the coolant flow. So, if you test coolant and it picks up on some of these other metals, it's going to say, hey, wait a minute, I've got something happening, something that's not correct. And then you got to dig into it.
Yeah, I know as the electric bus is being introduced and we're all getting on board with it, I'm anxious to see, should we be testing the coolant that's cooling the motor and the batteries, and it's the blood flow of the electric vehicle.
Yeah, what I think will happen is, my suggestion is going to be initially with electric buses, depending on how the state finally lands on their mandate, is I think schools are going to be forced to really push them back to the OEMs, because they don't want hands on there, because they want that data so much. They want to see what's going on. So a lot of it's going to stay sealed from your hands, from mechanics' hands to do the work. But when that threshold jumps, and this is the area that we keep having conversations about. If you buy that electric bus, it's $450,000 or whatever it is now. Can you do it? You get an 8-year warranty, but can the school district afford to turn the bus over prior to 8 years when they're spending that much money for a bus now? And if those two curves meet up and you have to keep the bus longer, then that's when we're going to have the conversation about, when do we test the coolant? When do we test, all the things in that bus to make sure that we can have it longer and it's safer. They're unanswered right now because the OEMs want the data back, to research and see that they're doing everything that they need to provide an 8-year warranty.
Sure. All right. Well, again, I want to thank you very much for your presentation. Does anybody have anything else to add to today's meeting? Anything at all? And guys, remember, we're still looking for a treasurer and a vice president, so we could use some help. Keep the ideas for the topics coming, because that's where we get all these ideas for our training. So please keep emailing me those. We've got a couple coming up. Our next meeting is going to be January 21st. Cody Shamrock with Leonard Bus Sales will be presenting on the International Electric Bus, and they've got some changes since last year that have come about, and he's going to go over those. So I'm going to go ahead and close the meeting for today. I want to thank everyone for coming, and remember, this was recorded, so it'll be on our YouTube channel like the rest of them, so you can refer to it and send it to people that couldn't make the meeting. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, Kevin. We will see you guys all later.
Have a good one.